Thanks for joining us tonight. A very busy show. We're going to hear from Jabral Johnson here on set, Rashad Reynolds, Monterosa, Mike Riley, Brandin Cooks, Storm Woods, a star-studded cast to be sure. And in keeping with that, it is my pleasure to welcome our distinguished panel here at Talkin Beavers at Plattdale, former Beaver great Tim Ewis, and the publisher of Beaver Blitz, Angie Machado. And let's just jump right into it, Angie. First of all, what was your main takeaway from the Beavers' experience down in Tempe?
Just like everyone else, it's the mistakes and the penalties and the interceptions and the muff punt. Those things kill you. And the defense actually came out and played a really solid game, especially the second half. But those mistakes they couldn't overcome.
Yeah, it was a game that the Beavers had a real good look at after falling behind Tim 20-0. I was proud of the way they put themselves in a position to have a chance against all hope, it appeared, for a while. But in the end, they just weren't able, as Angie said, to overcome those mistakes.
You know, Mike, they were able to fight their way back into it. And I know that it's no shave November, but sometimes teams and players need fresh starts. I went for the fresh start today.
Looks good.
You know, not that Sean needs a fresh start. He's almost 3,900 yards, 33 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, but 4 in that game. But what I look at, the takeaway for me is the film as a player, as a coach, is never as bad as you thought it was. It's never as good as you thought it was. You look at the 4 interceptions. One of them was a tipped ball to Caleb Smith. You know, one of their good defensive linemen got his hand up. Sutton gets a little finger on the ball. And then you look at the 4th and 1 where he just kind of throws up a long shot to Caleb Smith, really a play designed for Brandin Cooks. And, you know, so that almost turned into a punt, Mike. So I look at really 2 badly thrown balls for interceptions. And so the film doesn't necessarily show what statistically happened in the game.
Well, you were talking about film, and you are a gym rat. You study film. You break it down. When you were in the film room, Sean Mannion was there doing the same thing. We had a chance to talk to Sean after practice this week just about how things are going for him, how he's processing all of this, the recent games, and what's ahead for this great quarterback.
In the past 2 games, I think USC was a couple decisions, just balls I should have thrown away. I think last game I just had really 2 misses, and then one play where I probably should have played the other side. So I think those are things that can be fixed. I think that's part of what is so frustrating about it is the balls that I missed. Those are ones that I feel like I can hit every time here in practice. So while that's frustrating, I think it's also a cause for comfort knowing that I've hit those throws many times.
Well, Sean Mannion is always taking responsibility and ownership of some of the mistakes he's made, but also some real solidarity shown by all of his teammates, Brandin Cooks and others. The quarterback is having a great year, and the problems that some of the games have manifested are not necessarily all on him. Sean Mannion, as you can see, still leading the country in yards passing and touchdowns. That's not too bad.
Not bad at all, Mike. And like we said, some of the decision-making we haven't liked as fans over the last couple of weeks. And I think once they start opening that offense up with the fly sweep in the second half, making adjustments, and that's where I see the biggest change. Sean's second halves have been a lot better than his first with play calling.
Except for the pick 6.
It was a poor throw. I agree, Angie. It was a poor throw. But you look at the fly sweep opening things up, getting the ball to the tight end, getting the ball to the running back. Yeah. The screen game was taken away for the most part, which was different. But the Beavers really focused on the run, and I think that helped Sean out in the long run. 320 yards, 2 touchdowns. Really, in my opinion, 2 interceptions. Pretty solid game by a quarterback.
And throwing the ball 46 times, and sometimes you put it up that many times, and things will happen that aren't always good. But he made a lot of good plays, which we'll see one of them here in a moment. But Tim, first up, the Beavers played an outstanding defensive game, and you can look at numbers out of that, but you're going to show us here what we mean by good defense.
Yeah, the defense stepped up and played great. 339 yards of offense, Mike, holding a really high-powered team, especially in the second half to what, essentially 3 points.
Right.
So very well played. We're going to take a first look at a play, and we're going to see more of this week at Washington. You got your H back here highlighted. He's going to come across and block in a cross motion. And what's important is all the gaps being filled. Look at these 2 linebackers. They've held their ground. They haven't moved to where they shouldn't be. They have inside inside and outside of that block. The quarterback knows he has to hand the ball off at this point. Our two linebackers on the other side fill their gaps perfectly. DJ Alexander there to make the tackle. Great job of really everybody doing their job, not trying to do anything more. And when you play these high-powered teams, that's what it takes, just doing your job. And we have another one in Washington this week.
Yeah, and we'll talk more about that as we go. And Angie, the thing about defensive football against some of these teams, Coach Riley used the best phrase I've heard all year long. What's the key? And he said you can't get bored with assignment. You may get weary of doing the same thing again and again. Don't get bored with it.
And I think some of the guys in the past have tried to do too much. They try to overcompensate, or they're not trusting their eyes. This is the first time I've really seen Oregon State's defense play a spread team that solid. I mean, a team that was scoring 45 points a game on average, and they held them to,
490 yards of total offense, the average. We'll talk more about that as we go. But, Tim, in terms of decision-making and using your eyes to get back now to the quarterback and Sean Mannion, you've got a play here which shows a veteran quarterback making a great read.
Yeah, so in that second half, the plays calling changed a little bit, dialed up slightly different, and the tight end became more relevant in the offense. Not that they didn't try to get it to him in the first half, but Connor Hamlet really stepped up, had a great game, over 100 yards. Here's what we're going to take a look at. We got Malik out, split bottom of the screen here, bottom of the numbers. Two receivers, or two safeties here, safety in a corner. He's going to go inside, take both those guys with him. Now, look at this. Connor Hamlet. You got Ward breaking out to the flat. Linebacker's eyes caught on Ward. And really what's going to happen is as soon as Connor sees those linebackers break, he's going to slip right inside of them. And, you get your big paws up there with a 6'7" tight end, 265, 275 pounds, making plays down the field. Getting him involved, getting other guys, that brings excitement to the field. A great throw by Sean. Yeah. Patience by Sean on that throw. That's what I saw, Mike.
Yeah, and that was part of a 96-yard drive that ate up 6 minutes, finishing with a touchdown pass to Caleb Smith, and the game changed suddenly at that point. But in the end, Arizona State did prevail. However, the Beavers did a lot of good things in Tempe. That in spite of a dispiriting and at times discouraging 3-game losing streak, Coach Riley knows a part of his job as the head coach is to keep everybody's spirits up heading into the huge game Saturday night.
We just got to help our kids, and when things aren't going well, and even if they are, you've got to be right on top of being able to help them be prepared to play. And that's our job. And so we got to never leave a stone unturned.
Well, Coach Riley, I don't think there's anyone better in terms of just being a soul of equanimity. He stays even-keeled, and that helps everybody around him, his players also, to stay even-keeled and know that there's another opportunity Saturday night. We'll hear more from Coach Riley later on the use of film and technology to help his young men get better. Coming up next, we're going to find out who's on the Biletnikoff Award semifinalist list. I think you'll recognize the name. It's time now for our Wilson Motors game balls as we hand them out every week to a great Beaver performer. And we all went Babe Ruth last week here on the set and called our shot, starting with Timmy Ewis. Nice catch, Timmy.
Thanks, Mike. We called the shots, and our shots came true. I said we're going to give this game ball to the nickel or the dime that comes into the game and really helps solidify that run and pass defense. And Tyreek Zimmerman came out in the box some, and Sean Martin came in the game. They combined for 15 total tackles. So I give it to those two young men for the effort they gave to stop that high-powered Arizona State offense.
We'll be meeting Angie's recipient of the Wilson Motors game ball later on the set. But Angie, you had an inkling that Jabral was in for a good one, huh?
I did. I just think he's had a really good season, and I could see him really being a strong stop in the run game with them, helping stop that little read option they try to do. He had 4 tackles, he had a sack and an interception. That interception was key. Great hands. You don't see linebackers getting interceptions that often.
Beavers don't play Tampa too very often, and for him to drop back like that, Angie, and then demonstrate those hands, just the speed for a middle linebacker to go cover that middle third is impressive in itself.
And just being heads up. So Jabral Johnson gets my game ball, and Mike, I don't know, you might have got the overall game ball. You hit it for the fence. You swung for the fences.
Well, I did. The Bambino supposedly pointed to center field and then hit the next pitch out. It's a little bit of legend in the 1932 World Series. But you can look at the tape and see I did pick Connor Hamlet, and he goes 9 catches, 119 yards, and a touchdown, and was gigantic in this game. And I just think the fact that he's healthy, Tim, down the stretch again, he's going to...
Are you ever going to go wrong giving a game ball to a tight end, though, Mike?
No, absolutely not.
I don't think you will. And in 119 yards, that's man, that's a poster day for a guy like that.
Now, I was really happy to see Connor break through, and I think you'll see the fruits of his health again manifest themselves this week. We had a chance to talk to Brandin and Storm. We've been doing so all season long in run and catch. These are young men we're very proud of here at Oregon State, and they talked about what they are most proud of.
What's your proudest achievement?
It would have to be coming off a 3-9 season, everybody picking us last in the Pac-12 and just ignoring that and going to a bowl game. You know, nobody gave us a shot last year. Nobody gave us respect. We just came in and earned it.
Okay. My proudest moment so far, being able to come straight to college and playing as a true freshman, that was one of my biggest goals coming out of high school, and that's what, I set my, my standards to be. And to be able to accomplish that was definitely a proud moment, just because my mom was able to see her baby play right away and not have to wait a whole year.
Well, Brandin Cook certainly forced the coach's hand in that true freshman season, and we saw great signs that year. 31 catches and 3 touchdowns. I remember a 59-yarder against UCLA that was really a harbinger for Brandin Cook. 67 catches last year, and this year 100. One of 5 players in Pac-12 history to catch over 100 passes. And we see that as a result of that, he's the only member of the Pac-12 conference on this distinguished semifinalist list for the Biletnikoff Award, recognizing college football's top receiver. If he doesn't do anything else here down the stretch, he's already had an incredible record-setting season, Tim, but it's not over yet for him.
Mike, he could leave Oregon State with every record in the book if he blesses us with one more year here. But when you look at what he's done just this season, the body of work there, 140 yards a game, 14 touchdowns, over a touchdown a game. Also, you can't discount his rushing ability. Right. Almost 200 yards on the ground. He's got 2 touchdowns rushing, and that's where I think he differentiates himself from other wide receivers on that list. He has the ability to run that fly sweep, and he is the most pure route runner in the country right now. And whether or not you're playing on a winning or losing team, this is not the Heisman. The Biletnikoff does not go to the best player on the best team.
Right.
It goes to the best hands in the country, and I think Brandin has them.
And Angie, you remember, the Beavers already have a Biletnikoff Award winner, and it was the great Mike Hass, who didn't run the fly sweep ever, but in fact, the fly sweep didn't come till 2007. But Hass won it and was a deserving winner, even off of 5 and 6 teams.
Oh, definitely. Mike Hass probably ran some of the best routes I've ever seen, and Brandin does too. But Mike had that physicalness about him that he could get himself open. You didn't look at him and say, "Wow, that guy's going to be that's the top receiver in the country." But he got it done day in and day out, and maybe had the best hands of anybody we'd seen in recent memory.
No, and I remember the 2004 game at LSU when Mike Hass jumped out. It was the following year that he won the Biletnikoff. But I remember Hass against some of the best cornerbacks in the country. You remember that game, Tim, where he was able to out-physical corners and make catches.
Mike was an incredibly physical player, and he had pure hands. When he got his mittens on a ball, he was able to secure it. And Brandin does a lot of those things extremely well.
Brandin's faster.
Brandin has that extra gear.
Yeah.
I was just going to bring that up. He has the extra gear, and I think that helps him out of those breaks, those comebacks. And no disrespect to Mike, because he is a fantastic player, but that's what's going to make Brandin a great professional player.
Yeah.
And we look forward to, very likely, another member of Oregon State receiving that Biletnikoff Award. I would say he's the front runner and should be. Coming up next, we're going to get Tim's breakdowns of some plays as the Beavers get ready for the Washington Huskies. Jabral Johnson will join us on set. It's all coming up. Talkin Beavers, presented by Wilson Motors. It's time now for our Taco Bell Top 5. And we have been talking off and on about the 60th anniversary of Parker/Reser Stadium. And we've come up with the top 5 wins over the Washington Huskies in that 60-year time period. Now, there's only 7 wins that the Beavers have accomplished against Washington in Corvallis. 2 years ago was a great win. It was an upset victory. The Beavers were struggling that year. The Huskies were without their starting quarterback, Keith Price. 1968, the Giant Killers got off to an unbeaten start in conference and maintained that all the way through for an opportunity to go to the Rose Bowl before losing by 4 points to USC. But the biggest one on this list, Tim, in my opinion anyway, the best win ever over Washington at Reser. You were there in 2001.
You know, Mike, it was my first year starting, and it was a down season. It was a 5-6 year. It's not something that Beaver Nation necessarily wants to remember, but we did come out there, put 49 points up, and there was a little payback there, especially for Coach Neuheisel and that Husky team that really took a chance away from us for a national championship the year before. So a little payback there. I remember catching a little wide delay and getting my shoulder hit pretty hard and jacked up, but overall, great win for us.
I don't know, but 2007 was pretty fun too. Just the atmosphere and the electricity and a little bit. I mean, that was a major rivalry. I mean, that was where the rivalry was alive and well.
Well, the 2007 game, and we're going to touch on that a little bit later coming up on Talkin Beavers. That's the most physical, brutal game I've seen between the two old rivals. So I agree with you, Angie. We'll hit on that a little bit more. We're expecting another very physical game Saturday night, 7:30 kick. Monte Rosa and Rashad Reynolds, as all of the Beaver defensive players have been asked this week, what about Keith Price? And we're not sure about Price's status for the game, or will it be the backup, Siler Miles? As far as Monte and Rashad are concerned, doesn't really matter in the long run.
It's not really much of a difference, to tell you the truth. They're both good quarterbacks. I mean, I'd say Keith Price, you know, he'll throw the ball more than he'll actually keep, and I mean, especially, you know, recently, because now that his knee and everything, you know, is just getting injured and stuff. But to me, they're both good quarterbacks, and we got to respect them both.
You know, they're both capable, and you see it in the games. You know, one thing the other guys have more for me, just watching, he's a little more of a runner. It seems like, you know, if you don't see, you know, 1 or 2 guys open, he's running. Keith Price, obviously, he's a seasoned vet, so he goes through a lot more of his progressions. But at the end of the day, they're both capable, and that's why they're here. Obviously, they got a scholarship for a reason.
I think the clear message is no matter who's running this offense, whether it's the veteran Keith Price or the sophomore Siler Miles, the Beavers are preparing for 2 very good athletes. The experienced one is Keith Price, who's having a tremendous season. But, Angie, the Siler Miles young man from Centennial, Colorado, comes in with a great pedigree.
Yeah, you know, Beaver fans probably aren't really aware of him because Oregon State doesn't recruit these dual-threat quarterbacks. But Siler Miles was the #1 recruit in Colorado, the #2 overall dual-threat QB in the nation, a 4-star. He's no slouch. Just because he's not familiar to Oregon State fans, he's a very good player.
Now, that having been said, Tim, I mean, I remember when Nick Montana, another highly regarded kid, came in 2 years ago. He struggled, and Keith Price came off the sidelines and nearly rallied the Huskies. So whoever plays, this is a good offense, and it really is predicated on that power, tremendous running game of Bishop Sankey.
Price came off the sideline, Mike,
yes,
like a broken ankle.
I know.
And almost rallied the troops, and that's what he does. 19 touchdowns through the air, 4 on the ground, but it is anchored around that power run game. And people want to kind of stereotype Washington as a zone read slasher offense, but they go back to pocket passing. They go back to play action and power run game, and then mix in those zone read concepts at the same time. And Bishop Sankey, man, that guy can run the ball. He hits the holes hard. He's a very tough physical back to tackle.
And the guy that really jumped out that amazed me in their loss, Washington's loss at UCLA, 41-31, Demarie Stringfellow. What a wonderful name, and a kid who had 3 catches in all season, catches 8 for 147 and a touchdown, and another touchdown that was called back. Stringfellow came out of nowhere, but he looked good.
You know, he looked really good, catching the ball, running with it. And Washington is flush with athletes. They have receivers, they have running backs, they got guys that, and that's what you're talking about. You put a backup quarterback in, he's still a good athlete. He's still a good player.
With regard to Washington, Andrew, we can talk about their offense, and it's impressive, but the biggest gains they've made under the pride of Junction City, Justin Wilcox. That defense has come a long way.
I think Wilcox is a great coach. I'm a little suspect about their pass rush, and as good as their secondary is, I think they sometimes play a little undisciplined, and so that is something to really watch out for this weekend.
You know, they have a big, huge nose tackle, one technique that they play, and he led the team in tackles down at UCLA last week, kind of in that run-stop mode. But they're very vanilla in their looks, and what I mean by that, they blitz rare. 3 times against the Beavers last year, bringing pressure. So you just don't see it, Mike. And they're going to play a lot of single high, 1 or 3 coverages, and they're going to make Sean make decisions. They're going to drop a lot of guys and rely on those up front.
The one to watch is Shaq Thompson, the 5-star out of Sacramento area. Yep. That kid is good.
Well, there's a lot of talent on both sides of the ball for Washington and on both teams. And one of the most talented players that's really stepped into a huge role for the Beavers this year is linebacker Jabral Johnson, and he joins us next here at Flat Tail as we roll on Talkin Beavers. It's Husky Week, and we're going to talk to a very special guest here in a moment about that. But as I think everyone knows, next week is Civil War Week. Always a great time around the state. And as you can see, the Beavers are getting ready with a couple of very special events. The Portland Civil War kickoff lunch at the Crystal Ballroom in downtown Portland next Monday, the 25th, 11:30 to 1:30. And the special guest will be College Football Hall of Famer Bill Earthquake Enyart. And then later in the day, with the doors open and at 5 o'clock and a 6:15 dinner and program over in beautiful Central Oregon at the Bend Golf and Country Club with special guest Oregon State Director of Athletics Bob DeCarolis. Please RSVP by this Friday for both events. And that, of course, Friday is Husky Eve, and the Beavers in Washington Saturday night, and what will be the final home game for the seniors. And joining us on the show is linebacker, a junior, not quite ready for his senior night yet, we're grateful to say, Jabral Johnson. Jabral, welcome to the show. Great to have you with us.
Nice. Thanks for having me.
You know, and Tim has blogged this week in his special blog on CSNNW.com. Tim, you talked about the place of emotion on a senior night. Jabral, how important is it for you guys? What role will emotion play, and how special is this night for the seniors?
This is very special. I mean, for underclassmen, we want to leave a good, memorable moment for our seniors.
You want to send them out the right way.
Right, exactly. So we know it's very important, and we plan on getting this W for them.
Are there seniors on that defense that helped you out as a young guy, kind of brought you up through the ranks?
A lot of seniors have, but the one that stands out most is Michael Doctor. He kind of took me under his wing and taught me all the ins and outs of football. He likes to call it the football 101.
Now, this is a pump fake for him as a senior game. Hopefully we'll have one more with you next year.
Right. Yeah, that's the plan.
You know, fellow Oklahoman and Michael, who announced recently he is planning on coming back next year, as disappointed, Jabral, as you were and we all were from Michael getting hurt early in the year, what kind of excitement level does it build in you to know that you'll be playing alongside of him again for another season next year?
I'm very excited about it. I feel like you have 2 Oklahoma players that have a good chemistry on the field at the same time. It'll be exciting.
And there's a third Oklahoman, too, and Tyreek Zimmerman. You guys are having a great year together.
And
Zach Robinson, too.
Yeah.
For you guys to be 1-2, you and your friend from Lawton, what does that mean to you guys? I mean, it's something special. There's 2 Oklahoma kids leading Oregon State in tackles.
It's we always been very competitive, even in high school, so we just kind of drag that tradition along in college, and we just like competing with each other. 71
tackles on the year. How is your body adjusted to that workload over the last couple years?
I mean, it's not as bad as it probably seems. I feel pretty good, pretty healthy, so I mean, I'm going to keep rolling with the punches.
Tell me about this interception last week. Tampa 2. First of all, how often do you guys actually run Tampa 2 coverage?
Not too often, but when we do run it, we like to execute it well, and I feel like the interception came from executing it pretty well.
I feel you executed that pretty well. Safety spread out. You really have the deep middle third. You got a good pair of legs on you to run. You're covering that. You showed off your hands. Now, did you ever get to touch the ball in high school?
Yes, sir. I sure did. Me and Tyreek were receivers for Coach Breeze, so I had a little experience.
So, talking a little about Coach Breeze. Both dad and son, offensive coordinator, head coach at Lawton. Great guys. I've talked to him numerous times. Talk a little bit about, you committed to Oregon State, and then I do remember you took a trip after committing. You went to Texas Tech, and I remember talking to you in the airport.
All right.
It was a little touch and go for Beaver fans there. Talk about, what made you come to Oregon State, and talk about your time here.
Oregon State, when I came on my visit, I felt like I created a chemistry that I didn't really create with other schools when I went out there. And Michael Dockner, Jordan Poirier, Sean Martin, they were my hosts. So we had a real good time, and I felt like we connected very well. So I decided to come to Oregon
What
State.
do you do when you host athletes? I mean, Jonathan Willis, did you maybe have a part with that?
I had a part with it,
yeah.
yes, ma'am. I just try to show them a good time, tell them the ins and outs of college and whatnot. And, just try to...
Do you guys keep in touch with some, like the commitments? Like I said, Jonathan Willis, a long way from Corvallis. Do you keep in touch with him?
We're Facebook friends.
Okay.
So we go through Facebook. They don't really have his number, but through Facebook.
Yeah.
Jabral, the thing that Angie, touches on, and you've even mentioned guys that are playing at the next level. For you to be playing Tampa 2 and the kind of coverages and things that Tim's talking to you about, in terms of being prepared to perhaps play this game beyond the next level. You feel like here at Oregon State, with the types of defenses you run, the coaching from Trent Bray and Mark Banker, Rod Perry, et cetera, that guys can be prepared to go to the next level?
Most definitely. And like you mentioned, Coach Trent Bray, he's very good. He likes to simplify the game down so we can just go out there on game day and just play. And everything they teach us, it's just amazing how much I learned just from being with Coach Bray. So I feel like they do a good job getting us prepared for the next level.
How much does Trent talk about bending your knees and getting your eyes right?
Oh, I just had film moments ago. I heard that a couple of times, but he likes to critique a lot of things, but I appreciate that and I admire him for that.
I love watching Trent coach.
Oh yeah.
He is right there. I mean, he looks like he could be out there again right now, but he'll yell and scream at you guys, and then when you're running off the field, it's fun just to stand there and listen to what he's telling you.
Right.
Do you feel that your game has really elevated then with him?
Oh yes, most definitely. He's striving for excellence is, that's pretty much that's his thing. He strive for excellence. So although he may yell and whatnot, I feel like that's a good thing for us. It teaches me. I know not to do the mistake that I did again. So
how about Rommel? Talk a little bit about him and his development.
He's an amazing player. He's pretty quiet, but he's very observant. He watches film a lot, and he's a gym rat. I think that's what they say, gym rat. He stays in the weight room, and he invites me to come to the weight room a lot. So me and him, we have a good chemistry, and we watch film and work out a lot together.
This game with the Huskies coming up, it's been a heated rivalry in the past. And it's always a big game when I played the Northwest Border War battle. What does a game like this mean to you? Not just senior night, but the battle for the Northwest title.
Oh, it means a lot. It means a lot. All my games mean a lot, but this game means a lot for me, and I know it means a lot for my teammates. And then with the situation that's coming up, both teams being, same record and whatnot, I feel like that just makes it even more, more special for us.
Jabral, give us a sense. We've talked about this a little bit on the show tonight, but playing Arizona State and what you see on film from Washington, are there some similarities that maybe would help you guys the way you were able to defend Arizona State?
Yes, there's a lot of similarities. I feel like that's a good thing, advantage for us, and I also feel like it's easier. So the little things that we may have not been able to correct last week, we can correct it this week. And, with them being so similar, it kind of carries over from last week.
Well, Jabral, we really appreciate the job you've done on the field. It's a real pleasure to have you here on the show. Thanks for taking time for us. Have a great time. Send those seniors out on the right note Saturday. Thanks, Jabral.
Thank you for having me.
Jabral Johnson joining us, one of the 3 proud Oklahomans on the Oregon State roster, and we're grateful that Jabral is here. We're glad you've joined us. We've got a lot more coming up. Don't go away. We've got a recruiting update, in fact, still to come, and more on Talkin Beavers, presented by Wilson Motors. And it's time now for our standard TV and appliance rewind. And I can assure you that time fails to talk about the very interesting, intriguing, unforgettable aspects of this game. You can look at it from a numbers standpoint, see that the Beavers won it 29-23, but the game was exemplified, and perhaps the rivalry between these two teams by one play when Lyle Moivow threw his unforgettable crackback block on Grayson Gunheim of Washington, in a play that might have only gained 4 or 5 yards, but ingratiated Moivow with his teammates and with the fans forever in Beaver Nation. That was Lyle's first start, and it was a great moment. Tim, I know you were there, and we'll never forget it. Angie, you've already cited that game. That was unbelievable. But Saturday night now is the thing, and it's the Beavers and Washington Huskies in 2013, even though we'll never forget what happened back in 2007. What about this team that the Beavers are facing this Saturday night at Reser Stadium?
Yeah, you know, I do have to say that with Lyle on the staff, I'm sure that they're going to take a look at that crack block, and he was a tough-nosed quarterback.
But I can't see Sean Mannion doing that same
Let's
play.
hope not. No.
Well, we're going to take a look at our first play here, Mike, and we've talked about getting things going on defense and stopping these zone read attacks. Here we go. They're unbalanced in this look, Mike. They have a receiver and a tight end on line of scrimmage, 4 defenders, 4 blockers. And here's the beauty of this pistol offense. The pistol back, he can go either way, and they send him to the side that it's hat on a hat, 4-on-4 blocking, and really a walk-in touchdown on the goal line. The Beavers are going to have to recognize some of those looks. Sarkisian really likes to mix the looks up and make people like Coach Banker really prepare for a lot of different things. And as we said before, they run pocket passing, they run power football. Right there, they're running the pistol downhill. So a lot of things to prepare for, and I think he's going to kind of throw on the wall and spaghetti and see what sticks and try to roll with it. They ran that unbalanced into the ground against UCLA.
And Bishop Sankey leading the conference in rushing, 4th in the nation, 14 rushing touchdowns. That was one of them. He's clearly a load and one of the great talents in the country. And we've talked about how their defense has improved, but you know, there's certain playmakers that can get you from time to time, and we saw Miles Jack for UCLA have a huge game against them last week.
You mentioned that, a playmaker, and we've talked about rushing the football on offense, and we had 90 yards before you had to take away the negative plays against Arizona State. And I think here's an opportunity for the Beavers to run the ball. This is a formation we run, 2 tight ends on a wing to the same side. And really all they're doing, they're pulling both guards here. They're running old school power football, running downhill. Look at these guys pull up through there, just take their blockers on, climb on them. Jack just running down the field, breaking tackles, Mike. That's power football at its best. And honestly, if UCLA can do that, I believe the Beavers can do that.
Well, I think the Beavers took some good steps, as you suggested, in the run game against Arizona State. And again, to take pressure off of Sean Mannion in the passing game, to have those kinds of hits from time to time would be huge to help the Beavers get this win. But as you've already talked about, Tim, it's going to take a tremendous defensive effort against a versatile, resourceful attack. But the Beavers did have perhaps an advantage in preparing for Washington by going up against Arizona State zone read, no huddle attack. We asked senior cornerback and captain Rashad Reynolds to talk about the offenses for these 2 programs.
They're very similar. Of course, they're a spread team, both teams. But at the same time, they both got 2 good running backs. Washington, I think, what makes them a little different is just how they attack us, try to attack us. They're a little more on shorter passes, things like that. But then at the same time, they like to take shots deep. So they're both similar offenses. With offenses like that, you got to make sure that you make tackles, don't miss tackles, and just be sound in your assignment.
Well, the Beavers hope they can duplicate the kind of performance they had defensively against Arizona State, but that's really a matter of execution, of game plan, X's and O's. There's always more to these games than just that. That may be the most important piece, but as Captain Reynolds reflects on, it's senior night, an emotional night, and he had an impassioned speech for his teammates coming out of the game in Tempe.
Any competitor, we hate losing. This game, and something, especially something that you love, like I do, just like this team does, and that's something I make sure that we can't give up now. We came too far, we put in too much work, too many hours of film, and too many hours on this field. So at the end of the day, we got to go out there and just execute, and we haven't been doing that on both sides of the ball. Regardless, either one side play good or another, we got to both bring it together. So that's something that we're looking forward to do this week, and hopefully we can send not just myself off, but every senior off right playing in the last game at Reser this week.
Secondary coach Rod Perry told me earlier in the week that he was proud of Rashad for that speech to the team and the solidarity shown, but the challenge to everybody to finish this thing strong. And they'll get a chance to do so at home on senior night. Tim, you've been through that. What kind of emotions swirl on a night like that?
That's your curtain call for Beaver Nation, Mike. It's your last time to be in front of those fans and hear their appreciation. And it's just the culmination of 5 years of hard work and sweat in the weight room and in the offseason. So very exciting time. You talked about keeping the emotions under control, and they're going to have to do better than the 7-penalty effort at Arizona State, and keeping those emotions in check will probably determine the outcome of this game.
And yet at the same time, the extra level of motivation and energy and all of that, it's a fine line to walk. The Beavers hope they can do that Saturday night against Washington. We'll talk about the one thing a little bit later the Beavers have to do to win the game. Maybe it is keeping emotions under control. But coming up next, our weekly feature with head coach Mike Riley and his coaching philosophy. We've got you covered with Beaver football, including a special Thursday night edition of Hashtag Beavers Football with Tim, Katie, and Slade. Thursday at 8 o'clock with a Blazer game on Friday here on Comcast Sportsnet. On Saturday, it's game day as usual at 9 in the morning. And then post-game live Saturday night following the Blazer game at 11 o'clock. All year long, we've had the opportunity to hear head coach Mike Riley talk about the building of a coaching philosophy. And this week, we find out a little bit how he blends the old and the new when it comes to technology.
All these tools you have now compared to splicing the 8mm tape, I mean, how has that helped you as a coach to grow?
You know, one of the things I think that kind of gets lost once in a while, and even within our profession, I think, is that, at least this is my viewpoint of the profession, I think we're teachers. You know, you know, that's really whatever coaching means. I would hope teaching is part of that definition of what it is. And so, you know, teachers have all different ways of reaching their students. You know, some guys are going to be good at learning if you lecture them and they take notes. Some are going to see it if you draw it on the board. Some of them are going to see it if you show it in a film. Some of them are going to get it if you take them out and walk through it. There's all different forms of how that guy is going to learn. And I think football coaches are actually, even though they don't even know they're doing that, by exploring all these areas about where the strength of that person's learning is coming from. Football coaches are actually pretty good at it because we do all those things. You know, we'll get up there and talk about a play and explain what's going to happen, then we'll draw it on the board, then we'll show some examples on the film, and then we'll go out and walk through it, and then we'll take it to practice and we'll break it apart before we put it back together. So I think that, you know, that all the new technology has made all of that easier.
Well, Angie, I think you have to admire someone such as Mike Riley or any of the coaches who are, in a sense, old school, to find ways to adapt to the modern age and use technology, because in recruiting, you just have to be able to.
You have to. It makes their life so much easier to watch film and break things down and not have to travel maybe as much as they had to.
Now, speaking of recruiting, some news on both the basketball and football front.
Yeah, basketball had their early signing period last Wednesday, and Oregon State signed three-star players. I mean, I think it's a pretty solid class for Coach Robinson. Headlined by Isaiah Manderson, a 6'10 center out of Florida. The kid had double-digit offers, including Auburn and K-State, Vandy, some big-name offers. Good game. He's a little raw in his offensive game, but, you know, great rebounder and will really help the Beavers as a big man. And then Ty Baker, another Florida. He's a shooting guard. Not a lot out there on him. Oregon State was his only offer. Here he's very athletic. The one that Beaver Nation is probably most excited about is the Mitten. I say the Mitten, that is his nickname, is the Mitten. It's Gary Payton 2. Dad was the glove, this is the Mitten. And he was a late addition to the class, right on signing day. His LOI has arrived, though. He is officially a Beaver out of Salt Lake Community College.
And what I have been told, and I'm so glad to hear it, Tim, that Gary Payton II, a chip off the old block when it comes to defending.
Yes.
I mean, there's been no greater defensive guard in the history of our league than Gary Payton I.
The glove, that's why they call him that. He's stuck to guys all over the court. And what I like about the Beavers basketball, this team in these three additions, the defense has stepped up this year, Mike. We saw that last week at Maryland, and the rebounding has stepped up. So it's good to hear another rebounder coming into the fold.
And good defender too. So
that's basketball, and it's good news. What's happening on the football front?
I don't have any commitments to talk about today, but great. We had a story this morning on Beaver Blitz. I would call him a cornerstone recruit. Colton Miller out of Roseville, California. He's a 6'8", 290-pound offensive tackle. Big guy, double-digit offers again. He is visiting Oregon State December 13th. He'll be here that weekend, so Beavers will be in a bowl prep situation. He'll be here, but he's also visiting Wisconsin, and now Nebraska's getting in the mix. So big-time prospect, and, you know, anytime you can try to lock up one of those big fellas. You know, we talked to his dad, who said that the main reason Oregon State's still in the mix is because of Coach Riley. Coach Riley taking the time as a head coach to come down and be at one of his games a couple weeks ago during the Beaver bye week was really important to them, and Colton really likes Oregon State.
Well, I'm glad you have that sort of inside information, because Coach Riley told me he was going to be in that area. Certainly couldn't tell me who he was looking at, but I'm glad you found ways to get that from Colton's dad. That's great news. And I'm also pleased with your optimism about preparation during the bowl game. But I think to ensure that, they need to beat Washington. And so when we come back on Talkin Beavers, we'll get to the one thing the Bees have to do to beat Washington and assure themselves of that postseason opportunity. We take a look at the Pac-12 North standings, and I think we can see the magnitude of the event Saturday night at Reser Stadium in terms of positioning in the North, not only in the final standings, but what that might mean for the possibility of both Washington and the Beavers going to the postseason. A Beaver victory, as you can see, separates them in a big way from Washington. So there's a lot on this game for a lot of reasons. Tim, I want to start with you. The one thing the Beavers need to do to maintain that lead over Washington in the North and the superior bowl positioning that would give them.
In rare form this week, Mike, I will bring one thing.
Okay.
Keep Bishop Sankey under 100 yards of rushing on the day. And I played for Coach Dan Cazzetto, the offensive line coach at Washington, and that offensive line is motivated to get 100-plus yards for that back. So if the Beaver D-line and linebacking core can keep him under 100 yards, Mike, great chance at winning.
And it won't be easy. I mean, that offensive line, well coached by Dan Cazzetto, who has a lot of admirers, including yourself here. But they've played together. That whole line has been together, save for one player who's missed 2 starts. Everybody else has played every game, and they have a real cohesiveness there. Angie, what's your one thing?
My one thing is limit mistakes. Oregon State, even with all the mistakes they had, the interceptions and the penalties, I seriously think if that pick six didn't happen, Oregon State drives down, scores, I think the Beavers win.
I think if they don't have the penalty on Isaac, that was a ridiculous penalty anyways, they score there, they win.
They very well could have had a 20-13, but that was last week, ancient history now.
So limit mistakes. My one thing is to limit the mistakes.
That's an important takeaway from that game, and if they do that just from a football standpoint.
You worry about, Coach Hayward, former Oregon State secondary coach, he knows Sean Mannion's tendencies. They picked him 4 times last year. Sean has to have a good game this year.
Sean was not physically quite right
wasn't.
Last year at CenturyLink. He's due and will have a good game. And we've talked a lot in this show about what place emotion and the senior night and fan appreciation night, final home game, all of that. For me, the key is going to be, the one thing is for the Beavers to play the whole 60 minutes on an edge, at a fever pitch, but also, and it has to do a little bit with mistakes, don't let that emotion get you carried away with too much, but use the emotion, channel it right,
remember,
and go beat the Huskies.
Remember Marcus Wheaton. That could be the battle cry.
They will remember Marcus Wheaton. We all do. We look forward to seeing what happens Saturday night at Reser Stadium. We hope you'll be there. We know we'll be back here next week.